YouTube loves ads more than P. Diddy loves baby oil. They have made so many decisions that all revolve around feeding people as many ads as possible and in many ways as possible. I'm sure all of you saw a few days ago they announced that they're officially fully rolling out the ads experience while a video is paused. So now when you pardon my phlegm, I had to go take care of business there. So now when you pause a video, you can be served an ad. They call it the pause experience. I love that nomenclature. That is so fucking silly. This is the pause experience, which is why we're serving.
That's interesting. I haven't heard about that before. But that does make sense. YouTube is a business and they're trying to incorporate as much monetization as possible. So, in order to get it maximized, enabling it on a pause, especially if folks have it paused for a while, that could generate a good amount of extra revenue. Interesting if he has more info around this change.
You a Dunkin' Donuts ad. But I'm not here just to focus on YouTube's abundance of ads. I'm here to talk about its war on ad blockers. This is something that's been going on for a while now. There's been tons of mangled corpses left out in the street from this battle, and now there's been a new casualty. Me. So, I've noticed over the last few days, and I know I'm not alone, that YouTube has done a lot more to beef up its protocol against ad blockers. So, when I've been trying to watch videos on my account that is not a premium subscriber, I've been getting this notice. Video player will be blocked after one video. It looks like you may be using an ad blocker. Video playback will be blocked unless YouTube is.
Wow. This is actually a pretty advanced system that YouTube has here. They're clearly trying to ensure that they get proper monetization. Also, they have YouTube Premium. So basically, this is in some essence trying to force folks to either watch the ads or actually go down the premium route. I'm interested in how they potentially are ensuring that. Likely, they're double checking whether or not the ad was able to load properly. Some ad blockers completely prevent that type of content from being downloaded towards you, or like they just block that URL so you would never actually download the ad. I thought YouTube had switched their system to basically pull from their own servers previously to block to avoid most ad blockers for this reason. So I'm curious how he's been getting around this, but definitely YouTube is getting very advanced with how they're seeing folks and what ad blocking tech they have.
Allow listed or ad blocker is disabled. Ads allow YouTube to be used by billions worldwide. You can go ad-free with premium and creators can still get paid from your subscription. YouTube lets you get 3 free samples in there with your ad block still enabled, but they hate ad block. They hate that more than P. Diddy hates security cameras. So they give you these 3.
Clearly trying to be current, I guess, with these P. Diddy references, but we'll see if he keeps going with those.
But once you finish your rations, they shut you down. They put the kibosh on that. They give you this. Ad blockers violate YouTube's terms of service, and then it's the same bullet point list there. And then you can't watch any videos going forward unless you disable it or pay for YouTube Premium. Now, this isn't new. I remember this rolled out like a year ago as kind of a soft launch where some users experienced this, but not all users. And uBlock Origin was able to get around this no problem. Now, I wasn't using uBlock Origin. I had this happen briefly a year ago, or maybe it wasn't a year ago. Time moves so differently when you hit 30. It's like entering into a fucking black hole. Everything's all cattywampus when it comes to the perception of time. But whenever it was, months ago, I had this happen occasionally for like a day or so, just using normal ad block, and then it went away. I'm guessing that it was just an experiment and they decided just to put it back in the fucking shoebox or whatever. But now,
That makes sense. This individual I'm not familiar with, but I think he's a standard YouTuber. He seems to have a good amount of subscribers and is posting this video itself. Obviously, ads generate revenue for the content creators themselves, but also it generates revenue for YouTube. Obviously, servers aren't free, storage isn't free. So, in order to have a platform like this where folks can come and upload their content and not actually have to pay for storage or any fees associated with that, as well as for viewers to be able to come and go to a platform where content is so readily encouraged and easy to get out there. Money is definitely required for that to be possible. So I certainly understand where YouTube is coming from on this side. Obviously, nobody particularly enjoys watching ads, but revenue needs to come somewhere. So either YouTube is going to have to force people to watch ads, pay for premium, or even ask their content creators basically to pay some amount of money in order to have their content served and stored on their servers. So interested to see where he takes this, considering he's somebody who is arguably benefiting from YouTube's ad watches for his subscribers.
Well, we're back at the rodeo, and this has been going on for 4 days for me. So I decided, let's see if uBlock Origin works. So I grabbed uBlock Origin, and sure enough, it gets around this no problem. But I can't help but wonder, how long will it last? Because YouTube is constantly trying new ways of feeding you ads and breaking ad blockers. Like, they clearly villainize it. It's very obvious. They're not pulling any punches. They're not trying to hide or anything. They are saying, if you use an ad blocker, it's against our terms of service. It violates it. So the fact that uBlock works is probably something they're not overly thrilled about. And I remember a few months ago, Mudahar made a video about how YouTube is experimenting with server-side ad injections. So, like, they are constantly trying to innovate in ways to blast your ass with ads. And right now,
Yeah, so he seems to be mentioning how YouTube is clearly trying to evolve how they're working against these ad blockers. He also seems to be confused, I guess, to some extent, or potentially upset about this ad blocking. But again, I'm not entirely following how this individual, as a content creator, is justifying this. Obviously, he even has a plaque in the back of his room highlighting so many views or subscribers that he has, and so he is directly benefiting from ad revenue existing. Uh, and again, that's necessary to support a platform like this. So I'm not sure what angle he's trying to take here.
uBlock is able to put like a shield on your butt cheeks to stop this from happening, but will it always work with getting around YouTube's ads? I have no clue. I'm way too fucking stupid to have the answer to that question. Why are you even asking me?
Quite the colorful language from this content creator. So apologies for anyone if they are offended by that. I'll try to be mindful of those in future sessions. If you have a problem with this type of content, feel free to add a comment and I'll be on the lookout for it.
I struggle to remember how to do long division sometimes. Clearly, I wouldn't have the answer to this one. But I do think YouTube is probably having like an entire dedicated fish tank all focused on brainstorming how to break uBlock Origin and every other ad block to force people into either paying for YouTube Premium or allowing ads on the site. What I do know for sure is that the internet itself is unusable without an ad blocker. Period. Full stop. I'm not being exaggeratory. It is literally not possible to use the internet without an ad block. Go to any mainstream journalist website, try and read an article.
I see. So I'm not sure if he's necessarily taking a stance on YouTube in particular, but potentially the fact that ad blockers are, in his perception, basically required to use the internet, which is an interesting argument. There's certainly a lot of sites that kind of overdo it on ads, and so sometimes it can be very difficult and a poor user experience with how many ads some sites add. So he might be taking the angle of, because this is the state of the internet, having an ad blocker by default in your browser is expected. And so then going to YouTube and then not being able to have an ad blocker basically can hurt your out of YouTube experience. We'll see if that's actually the stance he's going to be taking here.
Without an ad blocker, you will find maybe 2 sentences that are broken up by 5 ads, an auto-playing ad, a banner ad, audio ads that play in the background. You can't get any of the content on the internet anymore without an ad block. It doesn't exist. The ads are the content. Like, that is the internet now. It's fucking tragic. And YouTube is bad without an ad block because unskippable ads out the wazoo, Ads that play even when you pause a video now, like it's excessive. I know I already made a video on this.
Yeah, so he seems to be actually including YouTube into this kind of broader over monetization bucket of too many ads, unskippable ads. Again, he hasn't really spoken on or touched on the point of the fact that he is actually personally benefiting from these ads and potentially is even making a living off of this platform. And so I don't know how he reconciles those two sides of things where ads aren't particularly pleasant to interact with. However, they're almost a necessary evil to some extent for a variety of services, especially for anything that's free. There's so many free apps or free websites that require ads basically in order to have a baseline to compensate for the expenses necessary to run that segment of the business. Now, I'm sure YouTube is a for profit business, so they're probably going to do ads beyond what is minimally required in order to run their services, obviously to make a profit on it. But that is exactly why they provide this service for both creators and watchers of content, is because they believe that they can benefit from hosting this service. So it is definitely there's definitely some challenge here, and I'm not really hearing him describe an alternative at this point in time, because basically, presumably, they would have to then push premium or potentially only have premium as an option. So maybe there's no free version of YouTube. So I'd be curious to see if he touches on this later on.
Topic like 6 months ago about how the internet doesn't function without an ad block anymore, but it needs to be driven home just how bad of an experience that is. It's not even an experience. At that point, the only experience you're getting is like brainwashing. It's like the ads are used as a form of hypnotism against those that traverse the cyberspace without protection. Like if you don't have the ad block condom on, you're fucked. Like you're walking away with the worst diseases imaginable. It's awful. It cannot be overstated how awful using the internet without an ad block is. So when it comes to YouTube in particular, it's not as easy as just like oh, okay, I guess I'll go ahead and turn off my ad block. It's not that big of a deal. It is a big deal because then if you're trying to watch like a 10-minute video, that'll turn into like a 20-minute experience because it'll be 10 minutes of trying to watch that video with 10 minutes of ads like slapped on top of it. That's exaggeratory. I know it's not to that extreme, but it is a much, much worse experience. And it's not like getting YouTube Premium is free or anything. That's 14 clams a month. That's an expensive subscription, especially when everything in the world is subscription based now. Fucking subscription based oxygen access at this point. Like, everything is subscription based.
So he is highlighting the fact that YouTube Premium exists, but he also doesn't seem to be recommending it. If anything, he's highlighting the fact that it's so expensive that he wouldn't recommend it. And again, kind of highlighting this common monetization option that many content services have, like a Netflix or a Hulu or something like that. And so it's interesting again that he seems to be of the take that like it should be completely free service, and he hasn't really highlighted a proper alternative that would enable YouTube continuing to exist as is while being able to continue to fund those types of activities. So I'm curious if he brings that up or if this is more of just like a general rant and complaint about ads. But again, this is something that if the users or the viewers aren't watching ads or paying for YouTube Premium, the content providers would certainly have to do it. YouTube isn't just going to spend million or billions of dollars to host all this content and serve all this content for charity purposes. They are going to need to at least recoup their costs and pay for their employees for the upkeep, the maintenance. And so I haven't really heard an alternative. We still have a bit left in this video, so maybe he'll touch on it in a bit.
So it's $14 on top of whatever other things you're subscribed to. It's not a low amount of money by any means at all. And YouTube without an ad block is just kind of dog shit. It really is. Nobody wants to be fed a ton of ads that they can't skip, they have no control over, and you can't escape from. You can't even pause a video and be safe from the ads. They'll come through and fucking jump scare you even on the pause screen now. So it's not like a super simple thing to just be like, I'll go ahead and allow it. One tactic I've seen used a lot when it comes to this, the spin that gets put on it occasionally, is if you use an ad block, you're taking money away from the creators. By turning your ad block off, you're supporting them, you're able to help them get more money from the content they create. And the thing is, I think the majority of creators on the platform really don't give a shit about that. I've seen most of them say, like, hey, you need to have an ad block. Like, I think most creators are very well aware that a user having a positive experience while watching their content is more important than that user giving them a couple extra doubloons because they got fed 12 ads. If someone's trying to watch your video and it becomes like a headache, they're probably not going to come back. And that's much worse for the.
I see. So he's taking the stance that basically, from the creator perspective, having a better overall experience, which arguably would be the experience that was curated by the content creator themselves, basically just the video as simply delivered as possible, would be ideal for the viewers. He still hasn't quite touched on the fact that like this infrastructure isn't free, but since he does seem to be touching on this aspect of, seems to be taking the angle of content creators aren't interested in the ad revenue. Um, I'm not sure if that's accurate for all content creators, but I do understand the segment and the sentiment of striving for the best experience for the folks who are viewing your content. That's obviously what you strive for in any business and any customer facing business. And so that makes certainly a lot of sense. But again, you'd have to figure out a way to monetize it again. Even for content creators, I'm not sure how long this individual has been a creator for, but at some point, you're going to have to see some type of monetary incentive, likely, for you to continue to build content. I guess, arguably speaking, there's things like Wikipedia, etc., that have mostly kind of volunteer work, basically keeping it afloat. But obviously, there's probably going to be a drastic drop in content that exists on the internet if it's just folks who are creating content for free. Um, and I'm not sure if that necessarily would equate to the most prominent content creators being part of that segment. So curious where else he'll take this.
Creator. So I don't think that it's necessarily the most creator positive thing in the world to turn your ad block to watch every ad and everything like that. And I don't think there's many creators that push for that either. Now, I'm stupid, but I'm not too stupid to understand the importance of ads. It's what puts money in the pockets of YouTube. It's what allows it to exist, and it is what creators make the bulk of their revenue from.
Yeah, so he seems to be coming to that point now. So I'm definitely interested to hear how he kind of aligns this knowledge that he has with kind of his advocacy for Adblock and how a system would exist or an alternative would exist for something like this.
Like, I get how important ads are, but what I would do, instead of focusing on finding new ways of making intrusive ads to ruin the user experience, I would instead focus on just having everything be as user friendly as possible. I don't think there's a single person in the world that has a problem with skippable ads. You just get a few seconds of an ad, and if it's a good ad, you might stick around and finish it and see what it's actually advertising, but a lot of people aren't.
I see. So he did mention skippable quite a bit in this video, so this seems to be his primary argument, which is ads themselves aren't necessarily inherently that bad, but not being able to skip them, basically being forced into an experience for an ad, is the part where this seems to cross the line for this individual, which I could see. However, again, this is where I'm not sure the specifics of monetization for ads for YouTube in particular. But generally speaking, if you can have an ad that particularly plays at a set amount of time, think about like live TV, for instance. There's always ads that you can't skip, that are in between the content. And that's because the person who's paying for the ad is essentially wanting for their full experience of that ad to be portrayed to the users. And so if the individual can skip, then effectively you don't know how much of that ad they saw, and you're not going to pay the same amount for it. And so it's hard to know exactly what that trade-off is there. But again, if you put yourself in the shoes of the company who's trying to place the ad, you want the full ad to be watched. And so if you don't have that as a guarantee, then you might not actually make anything effective in that segment. And also how you build your ads is going to be different. So like again, for the TV ads, you can have a baseline assumption that effectively the full ad will play. So you could have some build up in the beginning of the ad in order to kind of create an interesting experience. Maybe something like a Super Bowl ad that's maybe silly or interesting in some way. And so it doesn't all have to be about the product. But again, if you are able to skip, you would have to structure your ad in such a way that you are likely coming out of the gate hyper focused on your product, and that might not necessarily be the best ad experience either. And so that isn't necessarily that simple of a trade-off. The companies aren't going to pay as much for those ads, and it's unclear whether or not if every ad was skippable on YouTube's free version, would that be able to sustain them? While I don't know the details, I would have to assume not. I'm going to assume that YouTube isn't forcing all these changes just purely in order to get a high or a maximum profit margin onto the product, while obviously that is necessarily the point of the business. YouTube themselves are also incentivized for folks who are viewing content on their website to stick around and continue to enjoy that content. So they are also having to make this trade-off themselves of the more ads they place in front of the user, the more likely that user is to stop interacting with YouTube. And so it's not like this is a us versus them scenario in my mind. It's not like content creators are the only ones trying to create a good experience for the users. YouTube themselves are arguably doing this all the time, and they should be hyper focused on that, as if the users stop going to YouTube because there's too many ads, then YouTube would start to fail as a business. So they are still trying to balance this as best as possible. So it's an interesting option, but I'm not sure, again, how realistic that is. It would depend on the numbers, and I doubt folks outside of YouTube would be able to get that type of information.
Aren't interested, so they'll skip it. And having it be unskippable doesn't necessarily help the product. If someone already is tuned out, doesn't care about it, and now they're annoyed because they can't skip it, they're not going to be getting that fucking product. At least, I don't think so, and a lot of them are just going to click out of the video anyway because now it's become...
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned engagement for those videos as well, especially if they're upset about the ad. Another thing that I know of from marketing folks that I've worked with is generally when you're trying to create ads, while the ideal scenario that he's describing is you see the ad and then you immediately interact and then you convert into potentially purchasing a product or signing up for a service, most ads are effectively a numbers game, which is you're not necessarily hoping or expecting somebody to come in, watch your ad for the very first time, click in, and then make a purchase. In some cases, as a business, you're hoping for this to kind of settle in to the potential user's kind of mind, I guess, for lack of a better term. You're looking for them to have some type of brand recognition with you. So not necessarily immediately they're transacting, but maybe the next time this individual is looking to buy a product like the one that you sell, that they recall hearing about you as a business, and then maybe they're looking for you when it's time for them to transact in this way. And so some of it is just brand recognition. It's just recognition in general and trying to get an audience built around it. And that's some of the aspect of an ad, not necessarily an immediate transaction.
Mature to even get to the video. Twitch is the biggest culprit of that phenomenon, where if you're watching a stream and you get fed like 5 30-second ads in the middle of the broadcast, most people leave the stream or get up and go do something while the ads are playing. They're not even watching the ad. So your marketing push has failed. Like, I don't think it's effective to do that. I think the most effective ads are the skippable ones. If you could hook someone... Man, I'm having voice cracks and like fucking congestion here. I'm finally feeling better from COVID a little bit, but man, I still sound like I'm hitting a new puberty. But skippable ads, you can get someone's attention in a short period of time. If you have like a banger ad, or if your product's a banger, like, you can get someone to actually sit through an ad if it's entertaining and advertising something that they might be interested in. But you could always just give them the option to skip it for those that aren't interested. I don't think there's any benefit to someone that's not interested sitting through your whole ad anyway. I don't think so, and skippable ads are just the best for users. Like it's not close. Pausing a video and getting served an ad, I don't think anyone will ever positively engage with an ad that's served that way. I can't imagine a world where someone pauses a video, gets served a Dunkin' Donuts ad, and they're like, you know what? They're right. I need to order some Dunkin' right now. Like I imagine a lot of I God, I imagine a lot of people will get served an ad like that and be like, man, fuck Dunkin' Donuts. Like, it's just, I don't think these are effective ad placements in the first place. Like, I don't think it helps advertisers, and it's an overall detriment to the user experience of the platform. So, yeah, I think ad blocks are crucial to the internet in the modern age. And YouTube waging war against them and doing their best to shut that shit down, I think is horrible. Anyway, though, that's about it. See ya.
Well, there's certainly an interesting take on this problem. Again, I think there seems to be an oversimplification of the infrastructure and overhead for YouTube here. But thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please hit like or subscribe. I'll see you around.